What if I told you that there is a 13th zodiac sign hidden from mainstream astrology, and it represents everything that shadow work is all about? Not only shadow work, but the key to our soul's evolution. And in this video, we are going to be talking about that 13th zodiac sign, the constellation of Ophiuchus. Essentially, this zodiac sign would be seen as the 9th zodiac, but it is not inserted, or it has not been inserted into the traditional astrological calendar. However, in this video, we are going to be touching on the key attributes, the story behind Ophiuchus, where this constellation came from, the beautiful story behind it, and what it can mean for you if you fall under the specific dates of this constellation. Now, you may obviously be aware that there are traditionally 12 zodiac signs, but this one is going to add in a very key vital point of our soul's evolution. But the reason why it may not have been included, or it may not have been adjusted into the astrological calendar or astrological chart, is because of the imbalance that it possibly could create, which is part of the story. The Babylonians chose 12 signs to match their calendar, since astrology really hasn't changed to consider this missing constellation and its powerful traits and abilities to evolve the human condition and the soul's truth. The dates that would be included within this particular constellation are about an approximate date range from November 29th to December the 17th. So as I mentioned, this will place this zodiac as the 9th constellation, and it resides right in between Scorpio and Sagittarius. The constellation itself is a man holding a snake, referred to as the serpent bearer. This pertains to healing, transformation, and even forbidden knowledge. One could argue that Ophiuchus represents what gets excluded when systems prioritize convenience over truth. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what happens with our shadow, when the parts of ourselves we exclude because they're inconvenient. Arguably, Ophiuchus could have been left out because he didn't fit the system. 12 signs were cleaner than 13, and we do the exact same with ourselves. We hide the parts that feel too messy, too complicated, or too much. And those hidden parts, well, that's your shadow. Going into the story of Ophiuchus is very rich. You may be familiar with the story of Asclepius, who was the son of Apollo. So we're going to start at the very beginning. Asclepius was Apollo's son, also born from a mortal mother. When Apollo realized that his wife was unfaithful, he killed the mother, saved Asclepius as a newborn, and gave him to Chiron, known as the healer. Chiron was a centaur who was very kind and generous and wise, and taught Asclepius the art of healing. Asclepius grew to a very wise man himself, using his own healing abilities to help humans. But one day Asclepius witnessed a snake bringing another snake back to life with herbs. He then realized the sacred power of herbs and started to introduce it into his practice to not only save humans, but create immortality. Hades became very angry with the news of Asclepius and his rising power of healing, and went to Zeus, telling Zeus that Asclepius was meddling with the cycles of life. Zeus then agreed that his powers were becoming too strong and struck down Asclepius with a thunderbolt, only soon to realize that Asclepius was doing this out of empathy and compassion towards humanity, not out of hubris. In that moment, Zeus made a constellation in memory and in honor of Asclepius. You may be also very familiar with the staff of Asclepius, which is known for the symbol of medicine and healing. In this particular constellation, we have the bearer, the man, which represents responsibility. The snake, which represents in historic times transformation. We also have the relationship with the Ouroboros, for example, which is not part of this archetype, but it does represent also the cycle of life, death and rebirth, transformation. So the snake is very symbolic in this case, and the archetype as a whole represents healing. Because it's in between Scorpio and Sagittarius, it's going to have a flavor of both of these archetypes blended into one, regarding integration and healing, the process coming out of the underworld, out of transformation into integration to lift us into the higher expression of self, or to lift us into a new evolved aspect of ourselves. I'm going to be adding in Ophiuchus now in my work here over on my YouTube channel and my other work as well in the Shadow Project, because I do feel this one particular archetype, although it has a very small slot in the full archetypal zodiac calendar, it's very important. It's very key to work with and navigate for our own evolution and understanding of self. Key themes that this archetype will teach us is how to transform through crisis, the ability to hold and possess forbidden knowledge, being excluded or misunderstood, healing others through your wounds, and the serpent as wisdom and nature's regenerative intelligence. So why does it matter if we consider this 13th archetype, this additional archetype, is very significant for understanding the very, very important transformational phase that we go through of death and rebirth. It also can reveal how we create meaning through exclusion, being an excluded zodiac from the traditional landscape. We build identity systems such as zodiac signs, personality types, diagnoses, and then exclude what doesn't fit. And that's exactly how shadows form. Now, before we get too technical about why this isn't in a traditional astrological chart, I don't feel that it matters so much. I feel the most important lesson that we can learn from this is how we can integrate this archetype into our own inner practice. And also for those who are born on that date, take the information that is given here or that you can gain through your own observation and introspection and make it yours, make it your own. Astrology does not define who you are. It allows you to understand a little bit more about your roadmap, a little bit more about your soul's blueprint. It also can teach you greater wisdom about yourself, but it does not define who you are. It gives you the tools to understand more about yourself, but it does not dictate your life. Some of the key themes that can be explored with this particular case is the identity to attachment. For example, someone may say, I'm a Scorpio, and they may base their identity based on that particular zodiac, which then the belief shapes one's behavior. Another is the excluded becomes a shadow. What doesn't fit gets rejected, like Ophiuchus. The collective shadow. Society excludes the healer transformer archetype because it's too uncomfortable. And personal application. What parts of you have been excluded because they don't fit within the system? The invitation here for all of us is that you don't have to believe in the 13th sign, but you can ask yourself, what have I excluded about myself because it doesn't fit the identity I was supposed to have? Also, what parts am I overlooking in my own healing process? We can often rush, overlook, and bypass integration altogether. The reclamation and rebirth phase, which is probably one of the most important phases of transformation. So what does this mean as far as the zodiac traits if you are born between the dates of around November 29th and December 17th? Some of the positive traits can be healing and wisdom, a deep understanding of emotional and physical healing, almost like a spiritual healer. There could be great transformational traits, the ability to transform and guide others through profound change. There could also be a very strong intuition, connecting to the unconscious and the inner wisdom. And there could be a very attuned sense of balance, bridging the depths of emotion and the quest for higher knowledge. Some of the shadow traits could be experiencing overwhelming intensities. The depth of healing and transformation might feel sometimes intense or overwhelming. There could be an obsession with transformation, a tendency to focus too much on change and neglect the present. And there could be also issues with boundaries. Because of their depth in empathy, they may struggle with maintaining boundaries. If you would like to integrate this archetype into your practice and understand a little bit more about how the archetype within yourself can be acknowledged and integrated, here are some prompts for you to go a little bit deeper into the practice. You can look at the excluded self. What parts of me have I hidden because they didn't fit my sign or identity? And even where have I made myself smaller to fit a system? The other is looking at the healer wound. What wound am I carrying that could become my medicine? And where am I the wounded healer in my own life? And then finally, you can explore the serpent wisdom. What forbidden knowledge about myself am I avoiding? And what transformation am I resisting because it requires shedding my old skin? Some astrologers look at Ophiuchus and some don't, and I'm not here to tell you which is right or wrong. I'm simply here to show you that every system has a shadow, something it excludes to maintain coherence. So at the end of all this, the 13th sign really isn't just about astrology. It's about what gets excluded when we create categories, how we form identity through what we reject, why the transformer healer archetype threatens stable systems, and how shadow work is about reclaiming what was cast out. And the most important of all is you are not just your sun sign. You contain multitudes and dimensions, including the parts that don't fit any system. And that's your true power. The missing 13th zodiac sign, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, represents transformation, healing, and the parts of ourselves we exclude to fit the system. Whether you believe in astronomy or not, there is deep wisdom within this archetype that can allow you to understand a little bit more about yourself. And if you're watching this, you're probably already living it. So are you born in the time of Ophiuchus? I would love to hear about it. Drop a comment below, and thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon. Take care.